Tonight at 10, the boom heard across the DMV. What's behind the loud disturbance turning heads from Annapolis to Northern Virginia? Weekend violence in Baltimore raising concern about the city's youth curfew. Why some argue asking volunteers to patrol city streets at night could be a reckless decision. And city budget hearings pick back up again tomorrow. Fox 45 News digs into Monzi's request for more funding amid an uncertain future.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
We begin tonight with breaking news. A 19-year-old has been shot and killed along Orchard Street in Seton Hill. Police say the man was shot multiple times just around 8:30 tonight. He was taken to shock trauma where we are told he died. We'll continue to follow this breaking story. Anyone with information on this shooting is asked to call Baltimore police. And good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala. It is the story everybody is talking about tonight. Many of you may have heard a supersonic boom this afternoon around 3 o'clock reported in Maryland, D.C. and Virginia. Take a listen. This video coming to us on Twitter from Darren Epling of Odenton. You can hear the boom go off, lasting about 3 seconds. Earlier tonight, we got an explanation as to what caused it. NORAD says 2 Department of Defense jets were scrambled in response to a Cessna plane that had entered restricted D.C. airspace and was unresponsive. The boom was heard when the F-16s went supersonic while going after that plane. At one point, flares were deployed trying to get the civilian crew's attention, but there was no response. The plane eventually crashed near George Washington National Forest in Virginia's mountains. Now, reaction, of course, to the boom pouring in across social media. Jared from Fairfax, Virginia, shared this video. You can see his dog jumping up and running out of the frame after hearing the boom. Edward in Annapolis says he heard the boom while walking. He's it sounded like an explosion. The FAA providing some more information about the plane being chased by the defense jets. They say the plane took off from Tennessee, was headed for Long Island, New York. It made it there, but turned around, crossing back through the highly restricted airspace of D.C. This, of course, is an ongoing investigation. And this may not be the last boom heard in our area. Starting tomorrow and for the next 2 weeks, the Naval Air Station in Patuxent River, Maryland, confirms it will be doing routine testing events to simulate landing on aircraft carriers. They expect those tests to be heard in surrounding areas during daytime hours only.
Kind of Wild West. So you're out here when it's 3, 4 in the morning, and there's a lot of other stuff that requires police.
Concern from city residents as a violent start to June continues. A 19-year-old killed and at least 4 other people shot over the weekend, including a 26-year-old in Federal Hill. Now, Federal Hill, one of 3 targeted curfew enforcement areas, a plan still facing several questions. Fox 45's Vincent Hill looks into the safety concerns of a policy asking city employees to hit the street at night, actually, rather than police. Vincent?
Yeah, no police, no punishment, and civilians moving juveniles. A law enforcement expert says that's risky business.
After a weekend of chaos on Easter Sunday, culminating to 2 teens being shot at the Inner Harbor, just feet away from police.
I want everyone to hear me very clearly. We are going back to the old days.
Mayor Brandon Scott re-implementing the city's juvenile curfew.
What happens is BPD will bring them in.
Fast forward to 2 weeks ago.
We want to relieve them of something that has been their sole duty for as long as I've been breathing air in Baltimore.
Those old days with the new change. Police are hands off. Instead, the mayor asking city employees with a last-minute request last week, offering overtime and comp time to help get the juveniles off the streets at the Inner Harbor, Fells Point, and Fed Hill, where a shooting during curfew hours at 1:45 Saturday morning has residents on edge.
I am out right now, but like late at night, dicey.
It's kind of Wild West when you're out here when it's 3, 4 in the morning.
That sense of lawlessness has many, like Giovanni Patterson of the group Peace, concerned for the volunteers working in enforcement areas where offenders could be armed.
Anyone that volunteers is going to be putting themselves in harm's way for those youth that choose to be disrespectful or not following instructions.
Law enforcement analyst Melissa Pinkleton agrees.
I feel like this concept is stupidity squared.
Pinkleton questioning what training volunteers would have when dealing with juveniles.
It's a year of very intense training before we even go out there and deal with any call, situation, juvenile, adult on our own. What amount of training are you going to be able to give these people in such a short period of time that you think they're going to be effective with?
Fox 45 attempting to ask the mayor about that training Sunday afternoon as he kicked off the annual bid splash. His director of communications telling us to email our questions, but saying they have enough volunteers to enforce the curfew. Fox 45 emailed the mayor's office Friday regarding that training and again on Sunday.
I hope nobody gets hurt.
While it's still unclear how volunteers are dealing with juveniles, Pinkleton says the chance for danger can't be ignored.
It's like asking the school crossing guard or the hall monitor to stop a school shooter. The answer to this is very, very simple. Let the police do their job.
In an email to the mayor's office again today, we ask how many volunteers have signed up, what training they've received, and how many juveniles have been transported to connection centers. We're told they're checking on an update. In Baltimore, Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
And that brings us to our question of the day. Do you think civilians should have a role in enforcing Baltimore's youth curfew? Polls just open. You can make your voice heard right now at foxbaltimore.com/vote. Well, City State's Attorney Ivan Bates defending his new citation docket after public pushback. The docket creates a citation system for low-level offenses like dirt bike riding and panhandling, offering resources to help first- and second-time offenders, which they can either accept or be prosecuted.
We're not in this position to coddle individuals, but we're trying to get them help. If they don't want help, they will be prosecuted.
One Baltimore public defender opposes the docket, arguing it involves police presence where it isn't necessary and will disproportionately affect marginalized people. Former FBI agent Tyrone Powers pushed back on that in a discussion with Fox 45's Taylor Stewart this morning.
But you are also sending the message, the same thing we talked about before with the curfew. Sometimes you're not saying that we are changing the world. This is not a revolutionary process. It's an evolutionary process. But we're saying there are some standards and that we should have them in Baltimore for all the citizens in Baltimore, and they deserve that.
Powers argues there need to be consequences for violations, and the people in Baltimore deserve a safer environment around them. Week 2 of budget hearings kick off tomorrow at Baltimore City Hall. We'll hear from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, among others. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost investigates questions for Monzi and long-term funding concerns.
Ahead of budget hearings Monday, the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, or Monzi, issuing a 151-page response to Councilman Eric Costello, the chairman of the budgeting process. Monzi oversees Safe Streets, the Group Violence Reduction Strategy, and other gun violence prevention programs. The agency, created under Mayor Brandon Scott, has faced a years-long investigation from Fox 45 News about accountability, transparency, and effectiveness.
We've had exponential growth in this office. I think we're up to 38 employees now.
According to this organizational chart for Monzi, that number is actually 45. 5 positions currently open. Director Shantae Jackson, who's leaving at the end of June, making $223,000, while the Peace Mobile bus driver, slated to make more than $82,000 a year, and a Safe Streets communications manager, estimated to earn nearly $92,000. The actual Safe Streets workers who are supposed to be in the community stopping the shootings from happening in the 10 different zones are not listed in the budget presentation. That's because the violence interrupters aren't actually city employees, rather employees of the nonprofits running the Safe Streets program. Monzi outlining 19 of the 45 positions within the city agency are funded through the Federal American Rescue Plan Act, the temporary one-time infusion of cash from Congress to help with COVID recovery. That money set to run dry by the end of budget year 2025, raising questions about long-term funding for the people and plans put in place by Monzi. Beyond staffing,
also there's been some questions around the folks who have been awarded grants from MONSE.
How the agency is spending its ARPA dollars on programs.
It's a better understanding, the criteria that's used to select those awardees, what performance metrics are in place, etc.
According to MONSE, $12.8 million has gone towards city efforts to disrupt group or gang violence. $11.6 million going to community violence ecosystem. But how the agency picks nonprofits to spend that money and subcontractors remains a question. MONSE notes Jackson makes the final determination about award amount when it comes to selecting the awardees. And MONSE makes executive decisions about sub-grant recipients. It also creates its own performance metrics for groups getting tax dollars to determine if future funding is appropriate. But what those metrics look like isn't clear. These details come as the agency is set to defend its budget needs for the future, but who will lead the agency down the road remains uncertain.
Does the idea that the director is leaving at the end of June cause you any pause in how this agency will be moving forward?
Look, anytime there's a change in leadership, you have a period where a new head of the agency is going to come in. There's a transition period, so that's certainly always of concern.
Jackson herself refusing to say what's next.
Right here. Let me stop right here. Okay. Never, ever will I prioritize any news about me over top of news about our young people.
That's why I didn't ask during the press conference. So we can save that
question for a time when I'm ready to share it. Thank you.
Meanwhile, the concern surrounding Baltimore's violence continues, and the questions about how the city will get a grip on the bloodshed remain. As another year of the budget process unfolds, with the council poised to use new power when it comes to shifting tax dollars around. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
MONSE also oversees the Safe Streets program in Baltimore, which Fox 45 News has been investigating for months. The case of a man killed more than 3 years ago is raising more questions about how the program operates. Fox 45 News learned that the man accused of killing DeMond Scroggins in September of 2019 was a past employee of Safe Streets. Scroggins' family sharing some sharp criticism of Safe Streets.
Has your view of the Safe Streets program changed throughout this?
Absolutely. Oh, yes. Yes. My belief is that our city government is financing a criminal enterprise. I believe that within my heart. Our city government is so invested in it that it's turning a blind eye to what it really is.
Well, Fox 45 News has been working to find out more about the program's finances and the ex-convicts hired to keep the peace. Earlier this year, after Fox 45 News threatened to sue, the city finally handed over contracts with the nonprofits operating the Safe Streets sites. The contracts revealed the nonprofits are required to pay for a criminal background check for all employees, contractors, and volunteers. The Safe Streets worker charged in that murder case was found not guilty back in March. He had a prior criminal record, including second-degree murder, assault, drug, and gun convictions when Safe Streets hired him in 2019. Prosecutors also say in 2020, Safe Streets worker Ronald Alexander was let go after a traffic stop in which he told officers he worked for Safe Streets. During a federal search at his home a few days later, police found guns and drugs. In his plea agreement, Alexander confessed to taking drugs from people in the community as part of his work for Safe Streets. Coming up, new information in Friday's double shooting in Essex, sending 2 children to the hospital. Why the children are now facing charges.
The U.S. and China inching closer to conflict and confrontation. I'm Christine Frizzell with the latest factors driving concerns.
And after a gorgeous Sunday, guess what? A carbon copy comes for Monday. High temperatures near 80 degrees, a good deal of sunshine, but there are some chances of rain in our upcoming work week forecast. I'll let you know what the chances are of you getting wet and when. My Weather Authority forecast.
Some new information in the double shooting leaving 2 juveniles wounded in Essex on Friday night. Baltimore County Police tell Fox 45 News both of them are now under arrest and charged with attempted murder as adults. Police say it started as an argument outside Sandalwood Elementary School shortly after 8 Friday night. It spilled over to a gas station across the street. Police tell us this was an isolated incident. Both juveniles are being held without bond. In Frederick County, 2 women and 1 man were found dead in a car at the bottom of a quarry. The car was found around 8:30 this morning. According to police, the car was speeding when it left the roadway and crashed into the bottom of the quarry. The victims are ages 23, 28, and 65. 1 was ejected from the car during the crash. All 3 were dead when police arrived. Frederick County police are still investigating. Well, tonight, a budding dispute between the U.S. and China. While both countries say any conflict could be disastrous, there's no plan for leaders to meet. National correspondent Christine Frizzau explains why tensions are so high.
In essence, hit the brakes.
It was a dangerous encounter in the Taiwan Strait. A Chinese warship reportedly coming within 150 yards of hitting an American destroyer, as captured by the Canadian news outlet Global News.
We see the Chinese ship entering from the left of the screen at significant speed, I would add.
The latest incident, just one on a growing list of what U.S. officials call provocative behavior, including a Chinese fighter jet crossing the path of an American plane and the so-called Chinese spy balloon, which President Biden ended up shooting down.
They're trying to flex their muscles and advance authoritarianism. We need to stand strong, and certainly this administration needs to stand strong against this type of coercion.
Top officials here warning China to stand down, but also trying to convince China to meet.
The desire on both parts to put a floor under the relationship, to manage the competition responsibly, to ensure that competition does not become conflict.
Concerns of conflict not just in the air and at sea, but on land as well, with more and more U.S. land being purchased by people from China. One investment in North Dakota, close to a U.S. airbase, stopped by the Pentagon for security reasons. But the sale of hundreds of thousands of acres in rural Texas did go through, as rancher Bo Nettleton recently told Full Measure's Scott Thuman.
All that hill up there is Chinese-owned.
For now, leaders in both countries treading carefully but forcefully, with warnings even a small disturbance could lead to catastrophic consequences. Another battle on the horizon, likely over TikTok. Some in Congress have threatened to ban the social media app in the United States, setting up another potential fight between the two countries. I'm Christine Frizzau reporting.
It is that time of year again. Mayor Brandon Scott going down the slide at Druid Hill Park Pool to launch the summer pool season. Today's annual Big Splash event was at the newly renovated park pool, and the mayor says he's looking forward to city residents of all ages having some summer fun. And what great weather they had for it today. I mean, that's nice. Perfect, right?
Yeah, right about 80 degrees, and it looks like tomorrow, if the kids are out of school already, or maybe they're going to go just before or after school, something like that. The pool time continues. Or maybe you just want to go to the pool while the kids are at school.
That's sounds like more
a
of
good
plan,
idea.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead. Take a look at the pool forecast. 10 a.m. We're going to be at 67 a day. A lot like today, right around 80 degrees tomorrow afternoon. And those days of school, they are numbered. I know my kids are out of school. I believe Thursday is their last day down in Anne Arundel County. But we've got 65 right now in the Toyota Ishida Harbor Skycam. It is clear. Winds out of the southwest at 5 miles an hour. Our humidity at 65%. Dew points aren't too bad at 53 degrees, so we won't call it muggy or anything like that. But a nice dry day today, and unfortunately, we've kind of strung together too many dry days for our own good because we're now in a moderate drought up and down the 95 corridor. That's what you see here in this kind of peachish color. The yellows are a abnormally dry pattern that pretty much encompasses most of the rest of the area, and it doesn't look like a whole lot of rain the next 7 days. Our chances kind of few and far between. We'll get into that in a second, but there are some chances in our extended forecast. 64 right now at Westminster. We're at 65 Baltimore after a beautiful day, making it to 80 this afternoon with a 67 at Stevensville. 80 was our official high in Baltimore. Made it to 72 at Annapolis. A little cooler near the water, but you work your way up to Westminster. 79 for a high, 81 in Frederick, and again, very much the same for tomorrow. Now, do want to call your attention to the fact this isn't rain related, this is tide related, but a coastal flood warning is in effect for Anne Arundel County. That's for the high tide that occurs at 7:01 a.m. Could see some moderate coastal flooding here, some potential of tides running about 1.5 feet to 2 feet above average, and that could put Compromise Street with some water. It could put some water into the City Dock parking lot, approaching some of the businesses there, and also Again, right around that Dock Street area, some of the businesses could have some threats of water as well there, right near the U.S. Naval Academy. Now, the HD radar shows outside of that, there is no rain. There's some stuff that's way up there toward New England. There's more that's down into Florida as well as Georgia, the southeast, and there's more west of Minneapolis. But we're in this dry slot of nice weather. Fair weather high pressure is our main weather maker, and that's kind of how it stays the next couple of days. We'll have a couple of systems try to drift in from the north, and that could provide maybe, say, Tuesday, a risk, maybe 20% chance of a pop-up shower, but that's about it. Future scan overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning takes you down into the 50s to around 60 degrees, probably low to mid 50s is our brief low at BWI early tomorrow morning. And then we quickly pop you through the 70s up to around 84 tomorrow afternoon. So if the kids do want to hit the pool after school, that's a place to be. 52 degrees, mostly clear, refreshing for tonight, 80 with mostly sunny skies for tomorrow. And it stays nice on Tuesday as well, 85, but could see a pop-up shower in the afternoon and the evening. Not quite as warm for Wednesday, 80 on Thursday, 77 for Friday, and then a warm-up and still dry next weekend.
Jonathan, thanks. Still ahead, breaking the tension around talking about gun violence, how Moms Demand Action is preaching their message in Annapolis, and the personal connection for one organizer. Moms Demand Action, raising awareness over gun violence during a block party today in Annapolis. The event is designed to show the damage gun violence can have in the community, giving people resources to handle loss and allowing survivors to share their stories. For one organizer, the commitment is deeply personal.
I myself was shot by my ex-husband in 1981, and I didn't speak about it for decades because people just didn't. And then after seeing school shootings and hearing about shootings on the news, I thought, I can't keep quiet anymore. I'd have to do something.
Well, the event was part of Wear Orange Weekend, a system of nearly 200 events across the nation to raise awareness all about aspects of gun violence. Coming up, the HBCU Sports Summit today at M&T Bank Stadium. Why it's such a special cause for one Ravens player. With the worst of the pandemic in the rearview mirror, there are lingering policy questions to be addressed for years to come. As Full Measure Cheryl Atkinson reports, one has to do with medical freedom.
In October of 2021, Bill Salier and his wife got seriously ill with COVID. When they couldn't get treated quickly in person, they were among the millions who consulted a doctor online.
I had a 50-50 shot of coming back out.
The doctor's recommended treatment included steroids, vitamin D, and ivermectin, an FDA-approved drug long used in people and even longer in animals to fight worms and parasites. Just 2 months earlier, an analysis in the American Journal of Therapeutics looked at 15 studies and concluded that ivermectin reduced the risk of COVID death And large reductions in COVID-19 deaths are possible using ivermectin. But the reviews and messaging on ivermectin were mixed. CDC issued a warning saying the drug could make some people seriously ill. In the small town of Albert Lee, Minnesota, where the Saliers live, 2 pharmacies refused to fill the Saliers ivermectin prescription. That included the local Walmart.
He talked to my wife, and I heard her say, "You can't do that. You can't just not fill a prescription because you feel like you don't want to."
Bill Salier says he turned to desperate measures. He consulted their doctor and their veterinarian, translated the horse formulation into a human dosage, and
we squirted horse paste into applesauce, and down the hatch it went. 8 hours later, I walked out of the bedroom for the first time. My children cheered. It was remarkable. I could tell I was winning.
Salier felt so strongly about his experience, he sued Walmart and the grocery store. The judge dismissed the case. Salier is appealing. Walmart declined our interview request, but told Full Measure, "Our pharmacists have exercised their professional judgment, and we stand behind them."
Has something like this happened before on this scale? To my knowledge, no.
Andrea Sikora is a highly credentialed intensive care pharmacist who says the unprecedented prescription rejections were proper.
I think that there is sometimes a misconception that you're going to go in and get this prescription filled, and the pharmacist's job is really just to make sure that the correct pills are in the correct bottle and they go to you.
Many pharmacies did fill ivermectin prescriptions. One of them told Full Measure that he examined the many studies, believes ivermectin is effective against COVID, and that his own family has taken it.
My wife and I did the pony paste, and I believe I am here because of that decision.
We asked, but nobody from the government is tracking the number of people supposedly helped or hurt by ivermectin and other such therapies. For Full Measure, I'm Cheryl Atkinson.
Well, the O's in the Bay eyeing their first series win in a week and a half, plus an update on Gunnar Henderson's back, next on Sports Unlimited. The HBCU Sports Summit today at M&T Bank Stadium. Prospective athletes from around the nation meeting with players and coaches to learn more about the system and how they can succeed both on and off the field. Ravens wide receiver Shamar Bridges attended an HBCU in Georgia, and he says he's always looking for ways to give back.
Anything in the community, I'm all in about. Once I seen it was involved in HBCU, I was definitely all in about. And I just had to come out here and I just want to do something to help out the kids and just give back to what HBCU has given to me.
They had a great day for it out there. The program also includes lessons on financial literacy and taking care of your body. Well, that's all for the news at 10. I'm Mary Bubala. Thank you so much for watching. Morgan Atzett and Rocco DeSangro join us now with Sports Unlimited. Morgan and Rocco.
Thank you, Mary. Coming up tonight on Sports Unlimited, the Orioles hunting their first series win in nearly 2 weeks. Henderson held out of Sunday's game after leaving Saturday night's game with tightness in his back. Birdland will tell you how concerned you should really be.
Noted the good and not so good from his outing last night and what GM Mike Elias has to say about this reset for G-Rod away from the Birds.
And after getting blown out by the nation's top team, it was win or go home for the Terps. Could Maryland hold on to a 5-run lead? Find out next, coming up on Sports Unlimited.
Hey everyone, welcome to Sports Unlimited. He's Rocco DeSangro, Morgan Atzett. Pair of locals still playing postseason baseball. Maryland and Johns Hopkins. One team eliminated, 3 wins away from a national title.
Love it. But first, the O's in a rubber match in San Francisco looking for their first series win in a week and a half. Tyler Wells on the bump, and he was cruising early on. Gets Blake Sable swinging to end the first. Patrick Bailey. You can take a seat as well looking in the second. O's giving their guys some run support in the third. What a year Austin Hayes is having. RBI single brings in Jorge Mateo, and that gives the Birds a 2-0 lead. Josh Lester called up by the O's on Saturday. He would come through in a big way. First hit of his MLB career is a 2-run single. Ryan Mountcastle going to come ahead and score on the error as well. What a moment for Lester. He's going to remember that one for a while. Top 6, James McCann hit by a pitch on the wrist earlier in the game. Not really bothering him, though. Solo homer to left. That wrist is fine. Bottom half of the inning. Sable going to get the best of Wells here. 2-run homer makes it 7-2. Wells